صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. میرے غازی کہاں ہو میرے غازی کہاں ہو اے میرے باوفا اے بہن میرے غازی کہاں ہو تیری جاگیر سے چل پڑا قافلہ میرے غازی کہاں تجھ کو دیکھے بنا چین آتا نہیں نوک نیزہ پہ سر تیرا ملتا نہیں میں زیارت کروں کس طرح یہ بتا میرے غازی کہاں ہو لاج رکھ لو بہن کی برادر میرے خاک مقتل میرے سر کا پردہ بنے حکم دے دو ذرا منتظر ہے ہوا میرے غازی کہاں ہو تیرے بازو مجھے راستے میں ملے میں نے چادر سمجھ کر وہ سر پر رکھے بازوؤں سے تیرا پوچھتی ہوں پتا من کو دشت میں ننگ سر کیا ہے یا گئی چھپ گئے ہو کدھر خود چلی آؤں گی تم بتا دو ذرا میرے غازی کہاں ہو میں نے بچپن میں لوری سنائی تجھے میں نے چلنا سکھایا تھا بھائی تجھے راہ پر خار پر مجھ کو چلنا سکھا میرے غازی کہاں ہو وہ تیری لاڈلی وہ سکینہ تیری چلتے ناقے سے جب خاک پر گر گئی دیکھتی رہ گئی وہ سوئے القمہ میرے غازی کہاں ہو اے میرے باوفا اے بہن بردار میرے غازی کہاں ہو صلوات علی محمد و آل محمد
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات بیوہ شبر کی رو کر پکاری میرے بچے کی آتی ہے مہندی بیوہ شبر کی رو کر پکاری میرے بچے کی آتی ہے مہندی کوئی دھولا کی پھپھیوں کو لاؤ ان کی چھوٹی چچی کو بلاؤ دیر ہوتی ہے جلد آؤ میرے بچے کی آتی ہے مہندی میری بالی سکینہ کہاں ہو میری بالی سکینہ کہاں ہو کیوں نگاہوں سے اب تک نہاں ہو نیک لے جاؤ بانوں کی پیاری میرے بچے کی آتی ہے مہندی جا کے کہہ دو یہ شاہ زمن سے کوئی سغرا کو لائے भागी है किस्मत तुम्हारी, मेरे बच्चे की आती है मेहंदी। बेवशबर की रोकर पुकारी, मेरे बच्चे की आती है मेहंदी। कोई कब्रे हसन पे ये कहना, देख तो जाए बेटे का सहरा। उनकी फुरकत में आंसू है जारी, मेरे बच्चे की आती है मेहंदी। बेवशबर की रोकर पुकारी, मेरे बच्चे की आती है मेहंदी। बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलावत।
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Can you please recite Surah Fatiha, please, for all al-marhumin? Al-Fatiha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We request Maulana Sahib to come to the member with your loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. A second salawat for the love of Imam Al Hassan and Hussein. And the third and final salawat for the love of Fatima al-Zahra with the loudest of your voices. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك الطاهرين. ما خاب من تمسك بكم، أمن من لجأ إلى حصنكم سادتي. سيدي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، غريب يا مظلوم بأبي وأمي من ذبح من القفا بأبي وأمه من ذبح عطشانا. May my mother and father be sacrificed for the one who was slaughtered from the back of the neck. May my mother and father be sacrificed for the one who was slaughtered thirsty, O son of Shabib. My grandfather Hussein was slaughtered a stranger and thirsty. يا ابن شبيب إن جدي الحسين قتل عطشانا غريب تركوه في العرى دامي الجسم سليب. يا ابن شبيب إن يوم الحسين أقرح جفوننا يا أسبل دموعنا أذل عزيزنا. سيدي يا أبا عبد الله يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذي يراك حين تقوم وتقلبك في الساجدين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Enlighten this majlis and bless this gathering with 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yesterday, we discussed a very important social topic, and that was the right of the spouses. And we looked at this topic from number 1, understanding the point that Allah Azza wa Jal, or rather the sign that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed within this world, and that is that He created for us pairs from amongst ourselves. And how was this a sign from the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal? For it gives us an introduction as to what the family unit truly should be, or at least even if there are no children, what the relationship between the 2 spouses should really be. And that is that there should be stability, and that is that there should be mercy, and that there should be mawadda, which we said is love with action. Then we looked at the jurisprudential rights between the husband and the wife. And then we looked at whether those rights are limited to that, and we showed that there are extra rights that are important for a person to keep in mind, some of which, if they are not adhered to, there is some sort of punishment that could be involved with it. And the clearest of those examples was the example of kindness and harshness. That was yesterday. Today, I want to take you to a aqaidi, a theological topic. We haven't discussed any theology since we've started, and I believe that in the 10 nights of Muharram, one of the most important things to discuss are creedal matters. The theological subject I thought is important to discuss is a very important question that maybe you will find a short answer to, and that you all know the short answer to. And I will pose it to you and I'll see what your answer is. Were the parents of the Prophet disbelievers? What's the answer? No. Based on what? Do you have evidence for this? Now you're smiling. So this is the importance of understanding that, yes, many times there are specific beliefs that are found within our hearts. There are specific beliefs that we believe in, and it's something that we will not waive on, and it's something we understand, and it's something we comprehend, it's something that we hold on to. And I, as a Muslim and as a lover of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, I'm in a position where I do not believe that the father of the Holy Prophet Abdullah or his mother Amina is of the disbelievers. However, at the same time, there are also those who are Muslim and also of those that claim to love the Holy Prophet that believe that such a thing is the case, and supposedly it doesn't really affect their love towards the Holy Prophet. So it's important for us to understand and look at those types of let's say beliefs that a person has and understand them either for one of two reasons: either because it is something you believe in but it will strengthen your aqidah, or it is something you believe in but it is difficult for you to portray that aqidah, and therefore this is a tool for portraying that aqidah. So in both cases, even if you already know the answer, this is something that can strengthen your aqidah. And if you do not know the answer, then it will strengthen it in a manner where you can even portray that aqidah at times when it is necessary. So whichever angle you look at topics like this from, you understand that they are actually important. And this, I know, for example, there is that opinion that, for example, we don't really connect with those individuals. We don't really understand who those individuals were. And therefore, many times you'll find that when those individuals, be it Abdullah, Amin, or even Abu Talib or Abdul Muttalib, maybe not many times you see that individuals really get attached to those names. And that is because of our taqsir. That is because of our taqsir. And if anything, that should put us in a position of understanding them more. We have come short when it comes to those individuals. And therefore, I pose the question again. Were the parents of the Prophet disbelievers? In order for us to assess this question, there are three specific areas that I want to address. The first is the historical area. The second is the logical area. And the third is the transmission and the textual area. And inshallah, we will address each one of those three areas when it comes to answering this question, with your permission and with the blessings of a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When we look at history, and this is just a general thing for us to understand the general norm that was present during that time. When we look at history, we realize that there was always some sort of prophet that is calling towards a monotheistic religion. There was always a call towards La ilaha illallah. I am not in a position to give you narrations because that's to do with the textual proof. But historically, such things are proven through the narrations as a historical source. This is not as a aqaidi evidence that I am giving at all. As a historical source, narrations, books, you go to the Quran, you go to the Bible, you go to the Torah, the Old Testament, all of that you look at. When you look at those types of books, you realize that there is a consensus on what? That historically there are individuals who call towards obeying one Lord, and such a thing no one can deny. And even those who did kufr with Allah Azza wa Jalla and disbelieved in Allah or disbelieved in a God, also recognize that there were individuals from many years ago that were doing what? Calling towards one Lord. No one denies such a fact. This is one. Number two, even those who are known as mushrikeen, polytheists, the whole point of being a polytheist means what? Poly means what? Many. So therefore they believe in many gods, meaning there is a concept and an idea of God that was already present within the minds of those individuals. What I want to get at is this, that monotheism was also something that was present from Adam, and you continue until the end of creation. Such a thing will always be pushed for, and such a thing will always be mentioned, and such a thing has always had someone advocating for it. Now this, when you look into our, for example, history books that mention the norm of Arabia or the norm of the religion of those of the Middle East as it is known today, you will find that within the Middle East there were already established religions. For example, the Christians were very well known in that area. And from that you find, for example, the Christians of Najran that came to debate the Holy Prophet, true or not. The Jewish community was also very well established in that area. And that is where you get Khaybar and Ahzab and all of those individuals there. They all go back to who? To the Jewish community that were very well established in that area. Both of whom called towards what? Monotheism. The area in Mecca and around Mecca, I agree, it had a lot of polytheists. I agree. I don't disagree with such a thing. But that doesn't mean that the whole area are polytheists. Having, for example, the people in charge of Mecca being polytheists doesn't make all of Mecca polytheists. It doesn't make all of Arabia polytheists. And the most clearest of example, because wallah, I wonder, and I really want you to listen to this because this is something that we have already addressed. I wonder for the person that proves the fact that Abdullah and Amina were polytheists because that was the norm of the society. How can you even give such evidence? When we discussed the life of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, what did we mention? Did we not say that it is agreed upon in every single source, Sunni and Shi'i, that Abu Dharr al-Ghifari never prostrated to an idol? Isn't this something agreed upon? So you have examples in history that did not prostrate to idols. You have examples of individuals that always believed in one Lord. And the Holy Prophet, and Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, when he found out about a man by the name of Muhammad that is calling towards one Lord, he went to find out who this Nabi is, because this is something that he believed in, true or not? So historically, such individuals were found. On top of that, Ibrahim alayhi wa ala nabina wa alihi afdhalu salati was salam, he placed the Kaaba in Mecca and he made a specific dua, and there were individuals that followed Ibrahim known as the Ahnaf. Those who believed in the message of Ibrahim continued until very close to the time of the Holy Prophet, and they were also established. Yes, they were a minority, they weren't a majority. I'm not claiming they're a majority, but what I am trying to say, from every angle that I take this, you understand that there is no such thing that the whole of Mecca or the whole of Medina or the whole of Arabia were polytheists. Where did such a thing come from? What kind of misreading of history is this? History is very clear. The fact that we at least can prove other religions being present there is enough. And on top of that, we're saying, no, there are individuals who we know of, and everyone agrees on, that believes in one Lord and that did not subscribe to, for example, Christianity or to Judaism. And of them, it is very well recorded in historical books, and the narrator of them is Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet. He mentions that on the 10th of Rajab, a lady by the name of Fatima bint Asad arrived to the Kaaba, and she made a specific dua while holding on to the Kaaba. What did she say? She said, "O Lord, I am a believer in you and in your Prophet Ibrahim and what he has come down with from you, and in all of your prophets, and I am heavily pregnant, and in this state I ask you to ease this wilada on me. I ask you to ease this birth on me." So the Kaaba splits open. Fatima bint Asad enters. She remains in the Kaaba for 3 days, and she comes out holding Ali ibn Abi Talib. What I want is this, that it is recorded within those historical sources that there were individuals even making what? Dua in this manner. Dua by the religion of Ibrahim. Dua by the prophets that came after Ibrahim. So historically it is established that no, not all of Mecca were polytheists. No, not all of Arabia were polytheists. There is no such thing at all. How can we even make such an assumption? This is the first. Then you come to the logical proof. The historical proof is clear. Again, by the way, I'm not saying from the historical proof I have proved the iman of Abdullah and Amina. That's not what I'm claiming. But what I'm placing is a basis that is what? That is, not all of them are polytheists, so such a thing is possible. Is this clear? Keep in mind, by the way, I dare anyone, and this is not directed to anyone who's sitting in front of me, this is directed to anyone else who is not of this belief. I dare anyone to find a single, I don't want to say narration, so you say Sahih and what, and that goes under the textual proofs. No. Any historical source, doesn't have to be a narration, historical source, since this is the historical argument. Any historical source that mentions, I don't want that all of them were polytheists, we've already disregarded that, that mentions that Abdullah or Amina ever prostrated to an idol. There is no historical proofs that says such a thing. No text in history mentions such a thing. What you find is that they are quiet on this matter and they assume that they were of the polytheists. But find me one source that mentions that they are of the ones who prostrated to an idol. There is no such thing. This is in terms of history. When you then come to the logical proof, it's important for us to understand that when we come to discuss aqaidi topics, we usually use two types of proofs, the aqli and the naqli. What is the difference between the aqli and the naqli? The aqli is a logical proof. Naqli is transmission. Whenever you come to discuss a aqaidi issue, what our scholars usually mention is that the logical proof comes before the textual proof. The logical proof is always before the transmission, to the extent where. If you have clear-cut logical proof, everyone's with me? If you have clear-cut logical proof, and you have a transmission like a narration, which you are uncertain of, the logical proof is always before the narration, even if it is narrated by any imam that you want to name. This is the way that Aqidah works. Why? Because of the things that come from the imam, unless it is qat'i, unless it is certain, which is, for example, like the Quran. The Quran is certain. Yes, there is no doubt about it. But when you have a narration that you are uncertain of, but there is a logical argument that you are certain of, the logical argument comes before the textual argument. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because the textual argument is reliant on the logical argument. So when I disregard the logical argument to use the textual argument, what have I done? I have disregarded the same argument that allowed me to believe in the text. Today, if I tell you, for example, prove to me that the Holy Prophet is a prophet, how would you prove it to me? You come and you tell me how, because it says so in the Quran, Muhammadun Rasulullah, because it says so in the Quran. That is no argument whatsoever. Prove to me the Quran first before you even come to use the Quran as evidence. The logical proof comes before that. Likewise, how do you believe that there is Allah Azza wa Jalla, that there's a God? You prove the existence of God through text because there's a Quran based on what? Prove that logically and then come to me to the text. That is why I even mention many times debates that happen, especially at university level, is something that many times, because they haven't studied, for example, how an argument is made and all of these things, you find that they find themselves in specific loops, I want to call them. Circular arguments without realizing. In what sense? In the sense that they keep, for example, referring to something specific that is mentioned in the text, not realizing that that text is based on logical arguments that allowed you to arrive by that text. If that is not established, or rather if that is disregarded, then you have disregarded the text by default. So therefore, likewise here, before we mention the narrations, let us look at the logical argument that comes to understanding if the parents of the prophets were disbelievers or not. And here it is important for us to understand what a prophet is. The scholars have defined a prophet in the following manner. They said, a prophet is a human being. هو الإنسان المخبر عن الله, a human being that informs of Allah Azza wa Jal. من دون واسطة أحد من البشر, without the intermediary of any other human. Why is such a definition important? Number one, a prophet is a what? Human. That takes away a prophet being an angel, that takes away a prophet being a jinn or any of Allah's other creations. Clear? So a prophet is a what? A human. Al-Mukhbir anillah, the one who informs of Allah Azza wa Jal, to disregard anyone that informs from anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. من دون واسطة أحد من البشر, without the intermediary of another human, to disregard anyone that also informs of Allah Azza wa Jal, but with an intermediary. Now I am informing of Allah when I mention a specific Quranic verse, right? Does that make me a prophet? Why am I not a prophet? Based on definition only. Why? Are we together? Why am I not a prophet? Based on definition only. Should I repeat the definition? I'll repeat the definition. A prophet is a human that informs of Allah Azza wa Jal without the intermediary of another human. I am informing you of Allah and I'm a human. Why am I not a prophet? Yes? Ahsant, there's a medium. There's an intermediary between me and between Allah Azza wa Jal. The Holy Prophet is the only one that doesn't have that. And that is also exactly what differentiates Ali ibn Abi Talib from the Holy Prophet. Ali ibn Abi Talib informs of Allah with the intermediary of another human, that is Rasulullah. علمني رسول الله ألف باب من العلم. 1,000 doors of knowledge, each door opens to 1,000,000 doors. That is an intermediary of a human, and that is what does not allow a person like Ali ibn Abi Talib, let alone anyone else, be a prophet. So therefore, just by definition, we understand what a prophet is, and now we need to understand that this specific prophet has a role. That role is the role of guidance. This guidance that a prophet is coming with, and the whole point a prophet is a human, is many times you read in the Quran and other texts that what? That Allah Azza wa Jal sends those human beings so that you can relate to them. And even the Quran here is not required, because now even logically I tell you there's an angel that tells you to do this. You might tell me, oh, the Prophet had an angel. Yes, the Prophet can receive such a thing. Every human being, imagine, if every human being received an angel, it would be chaotic outside. Everyone would be in a state where they are hallucinating. They don't know if they're hallucinating, if they're getting something from Allah Azza wa Jal. This is not something that every human can handle. True or not? So therefore, there is a human that is coming forward and that is guiding people. A human that is guiding people towards what Allah Azza wa Jal wants, towards the worship that Allah Azza wa Jal wants. That human, because their role is guidance, it is important for us to remember something very specific. Can you be guided by an individual whom you hate? Or can you be guided by an individual who's not trustworthy? Can you be guided by an individual where there is something that does not allow you to draw closer to them? There is something about this individual that makes you move away from such an individual. Can guidance be complete like that? That is why our scholars have mentioned that of the logical proofs that we talk about the characteristics of prophets is that the prophets have to have characteristics that allow people to be drawn to them. Such that if they had a specific fault, now not every fault, a fault that causes people to not be drawn to them, a fault that does not allow people to be guided by them, be it in their looks, be it in their akhlaq, be it in their general mannerisms, such a individual is not a prophet. Prophecy is taken away from them. If it does not allow you to be drawn to that individual, there is something, the prophets are exonerated from anything that makes an individual not go towards them. Of the things they mentioned is that a prophet that comes from haram birth. Why? Because many times when a person's lineage is not tahir, when a person's lineage is not pure, and their forefathers are not pure, this is one of the things that people can hold against prophets and tell you, who's your father? Who's your mother? Where did you come from? Look at your son, look at this, look at that. True? Now, some of our scholars said we need to differentiate here. We differentiate when it comes to the sons, because when a good father has a bad son, the general norm of a community, they don't usually blame the father. True? Usually they say what? The father was such a good man. Why did he do an injustice to his father? Isn't this usually the reaction? On the other hand, if the father was not a good man, and the child was a good man, many times you will find that the community or the norm don't necessarily allow them to get closer. Why? Because they say, be careful. His father was known for such and such things. And this might stop guidance. Now, Sayyid Abdullah Shubbar, I want to be purely academic here and I don't want to be biased. Sayyid Abdullah Shubbar came forward and he said, this opinion is the popular opinion. Then he said, actually, some claim that there is consensus on this opinion. However, this is the words of Sayyid Abdullah Shubbar. He says, however, I cannot believe such a thing, and I am in a position where I do not want to make such a claim. Why, Sayyidina? Why did you say such a thing? He said, because I do not see it as a complete logical proof that just because someone's father is a disbeliever, that the son will not be used as a guide, or that people will not be drawn to the son as a guide. So regardless, you either accept the first logical proof, or you hold the position of Sayyid Abdullah Shubbar. If you hold the first proof, then what happens? Then all the prophets and their fathers are what? Are what? Believers in Allah Azza wa Jal, and they are all monotheists. If you hold the view of Sayyid Abdullah Shubbar, then you are in a position where you're saying such a thing is not logically necessary. Which means that now you have to move on to the textual evidence. The textual evidence, does it prove such a thing? Many narrations and the Quran prove such a thing. The first of which is the verse that we started with. The verse we started with is Allah Azza wa Jal saying to the Holy Prophet, الَّذِي يَرَاكَ حِينَ تَقُومُ, the one who sees you when you arise. وَتَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ, and how you move amongst those who are prostrating, amongst those who are performing sujood. Allah Azza wa Jal sees you in both of those positions, when you arise and as you move between those who are prostrating. Now, this is where I want to make a very important point, and that is take your tafasir from the Ahlul Bayt. Why? Imam al-Baqir alayhi afdalu salati was salam take your tafasir from the Ahlul Bayt. And the reason I mention this is for multiple reasons. I promise you, no language and no general understanding of the Arabic language or a few reading of narrations will allow you to reach to the right conclusion in terms of what the Quran is here to say. Which is why the Quran within itself is clear. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Only the purified ones will understand it. This concept of only the purified ones will understand it, the purified ones are clear. The purified ones are the ones whom Allah Azza wa Jal has chosen to be purified. Which is why they are purified in that manner. You don't reach the state of being mutahhar by yourself. Mutahhar means someone is purifying you. Allah Azza wa Jal purified those individuals, and those individuals are known. Hence you take the meanings of the Quran from the people of the Quran, the ones who are a match to the Quran, the ones who are known as the walking Quran, the ones whom Rasulullah said that I am leaving behind two weighty things, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. If you hold on to them, those two, not to the linguistics, not to people of opinion, if you hold on to them, you will never go astray. This is what allows you to reach salvation. This is what allows you to reach what I, as Allah Azza wa Jal, wanted from you. Therefore, when you come to understand these things, Imam al-Baqir is also of those that said, the furthest thing from a person's mind is the tafsir of the Quran. How is that, O Imam? He said, because the start of a verse is about something, and the end of the verse is about something, and the middle is about something, and the whole verse is about something else. How can a normal human come to understand such meanings? Other than the fact that there are multiple layers to understanding the Quran, of tafsir and ta'wil, and I'm sure you've done all of this in your madrasa, so I'm not going to go over all of that. Therefore, after you have all of these different levels of understanding the Quran, yes, there is the general understanding that you understand from the verse. This is what the verse is saying. Hence, when it came to this specific verse, and before you tell me you started to use narrations, I remind you, I have moved to my textual proof. I've finished the logical and the historical. We're pure text now. So everything I'm going to say is text. We have in our tafasir, including Tafsir al-Mizan and other tafasir that mention that yes, what appears to be from this specific verse is what? That Allah Azza wa Jal sees you when you arise in prayer. The reason being is because the next verse says, وَتَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ, and your movement amongst those who prostrate. So prostration is an act of prayer. Therefore, when you arise, you are what? Arising in prayer. And amongst those who are prostrating, those who are worshipping, you are also with them. And this is the general understanding of the verse. Is this understanding of the verse incorrect? I am not saying such a thing. I am saying there are multiple layers to the Quran. I'll give you an example. When it came to understanding the ruwayat and the Quran, in terms of that when you want to cut the hand of the thief, and the opinion came that you have to cut the hand of the thief from the fingers and not their whole hand. Based on what was that? Based on what? Sorry? Based on Salah. Where does such a thing say in the Quran? Where is such a thing in the Quran? Has anyone memorized the verse? إِنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ. The masajid are for Allah. The things you use for prostration are what? For Allah. فَلَا تَدْعُ مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. So don't call to anyone with Allah Azza wa Jal. How do you understand from this verse that you cut them from the fingers? How? This is where the Ahlul Bayt come and understand that there are batini meanings to these issues that allow them. The scholars that were sat with Imam al-Jawad when he gave this answer, they hadn't read this verse before, they hadn't memorized the Quran, they didn't understand the Quran probably better than, not to understand it in that manner, but probably know what is within the Quran to form their arguments probably better than me and you and anyone else. Those were individuals that used the Quran in a manner to make sure that it fits their agenda. But the true tafsir of the Quran, true understanding of the Quran is with the Ahlul Bayt. Yes, every verse has a zahiri meaning, a meaning that is apparent to the people. And yes, of the meanings that are apparent to the people is this, that Allah sees you when you arise in prayer, and He sees your movement amongst those that are prostrating. And there is even narrations that are narrated on this, including a narration from Jabir ibn Abdullah Al Ansari, where he mentions that Rasulullah informed those who are prostrating. He said, don't prostrate before me, and do not stay too much in prostration after me, as I can see you when you are in that position. So again, I'm telling you, when I am giving you these arguments, I'm not biased towards one side. And nor is, for example, mentioning such a thing going to weaken our argument. Understand that there are multiple layers to understanding the Quran. الَّذِي يَرَاكَ حِينَ تَقُومُ وَتَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ. There are narrations both in Sunni and Shi'i sources that mention another internal meaning to this verse. Of them is a narration that is mentioned in 7 different Sunni sources. 7 different Sunni sources. And the narration has been also narrated, the same exact narration, with the same exact wordings, has also been narrated from Imam al-Sadiq and from Imam al-Baqir alayhima afdal as-salati was-salam. Where they mention that Rasulullah was being transferred from one loin to another loin, in the loins of the worshippers, the sajideen, the ones who prostrate, from Adam all the way to Abdul Muttalib. This is mentioned. And that Rasulullah was born from nikah, from a marriage, not from sifah, not from fornication. This is a narration that is narrated, such that the scholars understood that from this it shows that the Prophet, as well as Amir al-Mu'mineen, because they share the same lineage, that the Prophet did not have forefathers who were disbelievers. Why? Because his forefathers were referred to as sajideen in the Quran. Now you might tell me, why were they referred to as sajideen? Sajideen because when you are in the state of sajdah, that is the closest you are to Allah Azza wa Jal. That is when you are in most submission to Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah refers to the forefathers of the Prophet in this manner, that they are in complete submission to Allah Azza wa Jal. This is a narration. And likewise, you have another narration from Imam al-Baqir alayhi afdal as-salati was-salam, when he is talking about this verse, and he mentions this is the transferring of the Prophet from one pure loin to another pure loin. تَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ. Your movement amongst those who prostrate, your movement in their loins. In fact, Imam al-Baqir in that narration, I missed the first half of the narration. In the first half, he even mentions the tafsir for the verse before it. الَّذِي يَرَاكَ حِينَ تَقُومُ. The one who sees you when you arise. وَتَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ. We mentioned تَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ what it means. He says the one الَّذِي يَرَاكَ حِينَ تَقُومُ, the one who sees you when you arise with prophethood. This is the meaning of this verse. This is a batini meaning of this verse. This is understanding of this verse according to how the Ahlul Bayt understood it. This is one of the levels of the tafasir of this verse. Other than the fact that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam he mentions that I continued to move from one pure loin to another. I continued to move from one pure, and I want you to focus on this word, pure loin, tahira, tahira, from one pure loin to another. How can he mention the loins of his forefathers to be what? Pure, if they were polytheists? Because the Quran says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إنما المشركون, sorry, najis, ahsant. إنما المشركون najis. They are impure. How can he refer to his forefathers as pure if his forefathers were polytheists? Which means by Quranic default, they are what? They are impure. That cannot make sense. Unless the Holy Prophet knows that his forefathers were what? Were individuals who were pure. So therefore from this, the scholars understood, and it is a consensus amongst the Shi'i school of thought, that Abdullah and Amina were both individuals who were pure and came from pure bloodlines. Hence, if you don't if you don't take the logical proof that we mentioned earlier, or for example, that which does not allow an individual to go near a prophet, or be guided by that individual because of their father, what this does, it allows you to at least establish, so that we're very clear inshallah, it allows you to establish that the fact that the forefathers of the Prophet to Adam, which means that the ones that go through Ibrahim, etc., are individuals who are monotheists. The ones who came from the other progeny, not from Ismail, the ones from Ishaq, this doesn't necessarily prove it. Is my point clear? What I am saying is, so that we are unbiased, and so that I am clear, and so that no one comes to me and tells me that your proof was actually naqas, there was something missing in it. No, I'm not claiming now that every single father of a prophet is what? Is a monotheist. But what I can understand from this verse, and what I can understand from these narrations, is that all the forefathers of the Prophet that go all the way to Ismail, to Ibrahim, then to Adam are what? Are monotheists. All of them. The other prophets, either you take the logical proof that I mentioned of the consensus or the popular opinion of the Imami scholars, or you are of the opinion of Sayyid Abdullah Shubbar, and then that is a whole different argument that I'm not arguing here at all, and that is not what is interesting me in this specific argument. So this is something we have to understand. These verses and these specific narrations are things that prove that actually the forefathers of the Holy Prophet were individuals who were pure and individuals who were monotheists. So I apply that to both my historical analysis, and I understand that the fact that there could have been individuals who were monotheists, the father of the Prophet is the bare minimum of that. Which is why, by the way, Allam al-Majlisi is not a small scholar. Allam al-Majlisi is not a small scholar at all. He has a very interesting opinion. Allam al-Majlisi, the one who compiled Bihar al-Anwar. Can you imagine how many narrations this scholar has read? Can you imagine how many narrations he's familiarized himself with? Bihar al-Anwar in the current new print is 110 volumes. Can you imagine? Bihar al-Anwar in the current print is 110 volumes. Don't tell me it has weak ahadith, all of that. What I am saying is that he has such a broad understanding of narrations, even what you want to consider to be weak. He has such good reading that he was able to compile 110 volumes of narrations, pure narrations. قال Rasulullah, قال Sadiq, قال al-Baqir, this is all that's mentioned. Allam al-Majlisi has a very interesting opinion. He says no. The forefathers of the Prophet were not just monotheists. They were all vicegerents of Allah Azza wa Jal. Either prophets or awliya. To that extent. Either prophets or awliya. Now, again, so that I'm not biased, this is an opinion that Allam al-Majlisi portrayed. Not all of our scholars agreed with this, but there are many scholars that agree that Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of Rasulullah, was a wali of awliya Allah. Many scholars believe this. And that Surah Al-Fil is one of the proofs on that specific issue. That Abdul Muttalib is a wali of the awliya of Allah Azza wa Jal. And likewise Abdullah the son of Abdul Muttalib, the father of the Prophet, was not any random individual. Can you imagine that Allah Azza wa Jal is in the position now where He is choosing where His messenger will be born from? Do you think that this messenger that Allah Azza wa Jal has favored to be the greatest messenger of all of mankind, to be the one that comes with his ultimate final message, comes from any random individual? Do you believe such a thing? Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib, if he was in a position where they were really certain that he was a disbeliever, they wouldn't have oppressed him, although they did not even have narrations of his life during the Holy Prophet, because he died and the Prophet was an orphan. Yet you find that not only was his grave removed, because his grave is in Medina, in front of, the Green Dome. If you are looking at it, if you're looking at the Green Dome, towards the right, as you are going towards Baqi', before the gate, that is where Abdullah stayed. Abdullah stayed there because his grandmother was from Khazraj, which is one of the Ansari tribes that were there. Which means, by the way, that Medina, when the Prophet went to Medina, he didn't go to a strange land. He went to his maternal uncles. So he stayed there on his way back from trade, and he died there. Do you know what they did in the expansion of the mosque of the Prophet? This is recorded. They took out the body of Abdullah and they found it as it was. Then they moved it and buried him in Baqi'. This is recorded. Search this up. You can search the expansion of the mosque of the Prophet and write the name of the father of the Prophet, Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib. They found him as he was. Eyewitnesses said, we saw him as he was. This is the state of a disbeliever when they are buried. I ask you by Allah Azza wa Jal. Regardless, this is not one of the arguments I'm making before you tell me this is a weak argument. My arguments were clear. Historical argument, logical argument, textual argument. This is just extra things that I want to mention. Other than the fact, if a person was a disbeliever, do you think that Allah Azza wa Jal would answer your hajat through them? Yes or no? It's impossible. Allah answers your hajat through a disbeliever? That's impossible. You know, we have a very interesting narration from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi afdal salati wa salam. One day, one of his companions comes to him and he says to him, "Oh, my master," a specific need that he had related to money. "What should I do?" Imam al-Sadiq taught him a very interesting amal. He said, "Go to the Kaaba, perform a tawaf on behalf of Abdul Muttalib and pray 2 rak'ats. Then perform a tawaf on behalf of Abu Talib and pray 2 rak'ats. Then perform a tawaf on behalf of Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib and perform 2 rak'ats. Then perform a tawaf on behalf of Amina bint Wahab and pray 2 rak'ats. Then perform a tawaf on behalf of Fatima bint Asad and perform 2 rak'ats, and your need will be answered." The companion goes to the Kaaba. He performs the tawafs of those 5 individuals mentioned. Of them are the forefathers of the Prophet, including Abdul Muttalib, Abdullah, and Amina, his mother. And it also included Abu Talib and Fatima bint Asad, the mother and father of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The narration says, as soon as he finished, he received the money he was looking for. This is not a narration I am mentioning from a random weak hadith, by the way. Also because I know, and I already mentioned that I don't agree with this mindset, but even for those that are looking for those types of things, this narration is mentioned in 2 of our most important books. It is mentioned in Al-Kafi and in Man La Yahdaruhu Al-Faqih. 2 major books, such a narration is mentioned in. Allah Azza wa Jal answers someone's hajah through this. Ajib. What position do they have? And this is where I remind myself first, and then I remind you, inshallah, as believers. Many times you do niyaz in the name of who? Imam al-Hussein, in the name of Abbas. You do a niyaz on behalf of al-Banin, maybe, on behalf of Muslim. When is the last time you did a niyaz on behalf of Abdullah, the father of the Prophet? Amina bint Wahab, Fatima bint Asad, Abu Talib, are not those individuals who are also gateways to your needs? So inshallah, Let's all do this together in the next few days. I'm not going to pressure you and tell you tomorrow. In the next few days, even when you are with your family. Even when you're with your family. This is something I've applied, by the way. I'm not just telling you things on the pulpit because they sound nice. I've applied them in my life. Even when you're with your family, you're cooking anyway. Cook in the name of a specific individual. Do you know the amount of barakah that comes from that food that enters your stomach? Cook in the name of Abdullah. Cook in the name of Amina. Does it do you any harm? You're going to eat the same food. But it is in the name of a specific individual, and your hajat, inshallah, will be answered. Now, again, Ibrahim doesn't just move from such topics emotionally. Ibrahim has to find ishkalat, and he has to find faults with his own arguments, as you're used to me now. I have a big issue with my argument. Tell Ibrahim, you've already convinced us. I have a big issue with my argument. And the issue, and maybe someone has already picked it up, is that the Quran actually mentions the father of a specific prophet, who I mentioned should also be a monotheist, to be what? A polytheist. When is that? Ibrahim, alayhi wa ala nabina wa alihi afdal salati wa salam. It mentions in the Quran, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ آزَرَ. Ibrahim said to his father, Azar, أَتَتَّخِذَ الْأَصْنَامَ آلِهَةً. Do you really take the idols as gods? إِنِّي أَرَاكَ وَقَوْمَكَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. I see that you and your people are upon ضلال, you are upon darkness, and clear darkness. So the Quran is now mentioning what? That the father of a prophet who we have proven through our proofs that should also be a monotheist, because this is one of the forefathers of Rasulullah, is now what? An idol worshipper. How do we fix this? We've put ourselves in a big trap, huh? La, don't worry, you're with me. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ آزَرَ. Number one, Azar, we're together, yes? Are we together? Ya Allah. Azar is either a name, so either it is the actual name, the name is Azar, or it is a description. He said to his father, I'm going to keep the translation, he said to his father, Azar, which is a specific description of how a person looks. Or it is the name of an idol, such that when you read it, it becomes this. And Ibrahim said to his father, Azar, you're worshipping an idol? This is how it would become. Azar as the name of an idol. Does that make sense? So it's one of those three things. What we know from our narrations for a fact is that the name of the father of Ibrahim is not Azar. The name of the father of Ibrahim is one of two. Either Tarih or Tarikh. Realize it's just the difference of a dot. As they were transcribing, they were not sure if there was a dot on the ha or not. So it is either Tarih or Tarikh. Nowhere near Azar. Now you're going to tell me, but you said Azar is either the name of an idol or the name of what? Or it's a description. So even if it wasn't his father's name, I'm giving you every single way to hold me, and I'm answering you, inshallah. Now even if that was the case, Ab in the Arabic language does not necessarily mean the direct father. Even you go to the linguistics now, and you will understand that Ab is not always father. Yes, Walid. When the word Walid is used, Walid is always father. Walid could also be the grandfather from the father's side. Yes, they could also be called Walid. Ab, however, Ab applies to the actual father, it applies to an uncle, and it applies to the grandfather from the mother's side. So already you have three different things that it applies to. They are all called what? Ab. In our narrations, it mentions that this Abihi that is mentioned in the Quran is the uncle of Ibrahim. Again, now we have to go back to our narrations to understand who the Quran is really speaking about. This is one. Number two, they said that even if you don't accept this, there is a probability that this means uncle, right? Since Ab is used sometimes as uncle, do you agree that even if there's a 5% probability that this means uncle, do we agree? At least 5%? If you have a clear proof that has no way of you moving it about. And a probable proof, what do? You take the clear proof and you move you move away the probable proof. In what sense? The clear proof said that from Muhammad to Adam they were all pure. And we have multiple narrations on this. That includes the father of Ibrahim. So that makes me go to the probable answer that it is not his direct father. And therefore it is who? His uncle. And the ab is used in this specific way. In fact, one of the ziyarat of Ali ibn al-Hussein, I'm coming to the end of my time. One of the ziyarat of Ali ibn al-Hussein, you say, Assalamu alayka, yabna al-Hasani wal-Hussein. Peace be upon you, O son of Hassan and Hussein. Hassan is the father of Ali al-Akbar. He's his uncle. But ab and ibn can be used in this manner in the Arabic language. Rather, it is used many times. In poetry, in Quran, in ziyarat, it is used in this manner. To the extent where this was also used with Al-Qasim, the son of Imam Al-Hassan. Al-Qasim, when he falls on the ground, Imam Al-Hussein, when he comes to him, what does he say to him when he's still on the ground? He tells him, Ya Bunay. And even when you go, inshallah, for ziyarah in Karbala, may you be of those that are granted ziyarah very soon, inshallah. And you read the ziyarah of Al-Qasim that is mentioned. You mention in the ziyarah that Imam Al-Hussein said to Al-Qasim, Ya Bunay, oh my son. My son here means nephew. Because you know for a fact that Imam Al-Hussein is what? Not the father of Al-Qasim. He says, Ya bunay, azza wallah ala ammika an tad'uh fala yujibuk. Oh my nephew, or rather he said, oh my son. Oh my son, it is hard for your uncle to know that he calls you, but you do not answer. Or that he answers you, but there is no benefit in my response. So he talks to him in this manner. And keep in mind that Al-Qasim was raised by Aba Abdullah Al-Hussein. The maximum age of Al-Qasim when Imam Al-Hassan was poisoned was 3 years of age. That means he spent 10 years after that, from the age of 3 to the age of 13, under the care of Aba Abdullah Al-Hussein. That is why usually when you care for someone who is not necessarily your own, it's an amana, right? That is why Imam Al-Hussein looked at Al-Qasim as an amana. He didn't look at Al-Qasim as anyone else. Hence, when it came to Ali al-Akbar and he asked for permission, yes, Imam Al-Hussein cried, but Ali al-Akbar understood it as permission. When Al-Qasim came to Imam Al-Hussein and he said to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, allow me to defend you, Imam Al-Hussein said to him, Bunay Qasim, my nephew Qasim, you are an amana from your father. I promised him that I shall take care of you. Al-Qasim replies to him, he said to him, Uncle Aba Abdullah, rather it is my father that gave me a will and that said to me, O Qasim, if you were to see your uncle Hussein all alone, with no supporters, then make sure that you would stand to defend him. On Ashura, Hussein stood all alone. His companions had fallen one by one. At that point, even Al-Akbar had gone. So came to his aid Qasim, the son of Hassan. He said to him, Uncle Hussein, allow me to defend you, for you are the will of my father. Imam Al-Hussein would embrace Al-Qasim Qasim. The narrations mention that they cried and cried until they both fell unconscious to the ground. When they woke up, Imam Al-Hussein said to Al-Qasim, "Oh Qasim, how do you see death?" He said to him, "Uncle Hussein, death in defending you is sweeter than honey." Imam Al-Hussein took him by the hand and he took him to a tent that he named Khaymatul Hasan al-Masmoom, the tent of the poisoned Hassan. He opened a box in that tent. He gave him the clothing of his father, Imam Al-Hassan, and he prepared him for battle. Then he said to him, "Oh Qasim, go and bid farewell to your mother and your aunt Zainab." The narrators mention that he entered wearing the clothes of Imam Al-Hassan. The moment Zainab saw him, she called out, "Wa Hassana, is this my brother Hassan that I am seeing?" Qasim would say, "Aunt Zainab, I came to bid you farewell. I came to represent my father." Then he went to his mother and said to her, "Farewell, oh mother." Oh mothers who are listening, can you imagine your 13-year-old son bidding you his farewell to a definite death? In what state does he bid her farewell? With a dry mouth, with dry lips, thirsty. He says to his mother, "Oh mother Ramla, I am going to die in my youth. Whenever you see youth, remember my youth. Oh my mother, I am going to die thirsty. Whenever you see wood, remember my thirst." Ajarakumullah, Al-Qasim would go towards the enemies. They saw a young man fighting on foot. They said, "Who is this guy that is coming to fight us? Who is this youth coming to fight us?" They would not go forward to him. He would call out, "In tunkiruni fa ana najlu al-Hasan, sibta al-Nabi al-Mustafa wal-Mu'min. هذا حسين كالأسير المرتهن بين أناس لاصقوا صوب المزن." If you neglect me, I am the son of Hassan, the grandson of the trusted prophet. This is my uncle Hussein, like a captive prisoner. May Allah deny you from his mercy. He fought them bravely, reminding them of the strength of his father Imam Al-Hassan, until an enemy of Allah would say, "By Allah, I will make his uncle weep over him." He kept looking for the right moment until the sandal of Al-Qasim would break loose. And at that time, it was not appropriate for a man to walk with a broken sandal. The son of Hassan, the son of Ali, the son of Fatima, the son of Muhammad said, "I shall never walk barefoot." He would bend down to fix his sandal. The enemy of Allah would strike Al-Qasim on the head. Al-Qasim would fall to the ground. imagine Imam al-Hussein approaching Al-Qasim. Focus with me. The narration say that when Imam al-Hussein approached Al-Qasim, what was he doing? The narration say he was kicking the ground. You know when you kill an animal and they start to kick the ground? This was the state of Al-Qasim, kicking the ground as he's bleeding out. Imam al-Hussein sits by him. He says to him, Bunay Qasim, it is hard upon your uncle that you call him, but he does not answer you, or he answers you, but his response is of no benefit to you. In that state he says to him, oh my nephew Qasim, I have so few supporters left with me. He remained by his side until his last breath. Then Imam al-Hussein would carry Al-Qasim, but in what manner? The narrations mention that he placed his chest to his chest. And although Imam al-Hussein was much taller than Al-Qasim, Imam al-Hussein was not able to stand straight. So his feet were dragging on the ground. أيوة قاسمة وسيداه وحسينها. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. ماتم حسين يا حسين.
قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لا شاہ حسین پیٹو سر اہلِ عزا لاتے ہیں لا شاہ حسین مادر قاسم نے لاش پہ رو کر کہاں آ گئی تم کو قضا لاتے ہیں لا شاہ حسین باپ کا نورے نظر اماں کا لختے جگر خلد پسند آ گیا لاتا ہے لا شاہ حسین لاش قاسم پہ جا پیٹ کے سر یوں کہا کیا ہوئی ہم سے خطا لاتے ہیں لا شاہ حسین یا 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 حسین حسین کربلا میں ہوا لخت دل شب پر ٹکڑے رن سے قاسم کے اٹھا لاتے ہیں سرور ٹکڑے کربلا میں ہوا لخت دل شب پر ٹکڑے کربلا میں ہوا لخت دل شب سر جھکائے ہوئے روتے حسین ابن علی سر جھکائے ہوئے روتے حسین ابن علی اپنے بھائی کی نشانی کے اٹھا کر اکڑے کربلا میں ہوا لخت دل شب پر ٹکڑے کربلا میں ہوا لخت شب پر ٹکڑے ہے یہ قاسم کا جنازہ کے جگر شہر کا ہے یہ قاسم کا جنازہ کے جگر شہر کا ان سے شبیر اٹھا لا ہے 72 ٹکڑے کربلا میں ہوا لخت دل شب پر ٹکڑے کربلا میں ہوا لخت دل شب پر ٹکڑے مادر حضرت قاسم سے یہ کہتے ہیں حسین مادر حضرت قاسم سے یہ کہتے ہیں حسین آپ کے لائے اٹھا کر ٹکڑے کربلا میں ہوا لخت دل شب پر ٹکڑے کربلا میں ہوا لخت دل شب پر ٹکڑے
ہے قاسم 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 قیدی بن کر پابند رسن لاشوں سے جو گزرے اہل حرم ہر بی بی اپنے پیاروں سے ہوتی تھی ودا کر کے ماتم ایک بی بی فاطمہ بنت حسن پامال بدن قاسم کی بہن کسی ایک جا سے رخصت نہ ہوئی کسی ایک جا سے رخصت نہ ہوئی ٹکڑوں میں جو تھا بھائی کا بہن کبھی اس ٹکڑے پہ ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم 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 کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کبھی صحرا دیکھ کے روتی تھی کبھی گش کھا کے گر جاتی تھی کبھی صحرا دیکھ کے روتی تھی کبھی گش کھا کے گر جاتی تھی پامال ہوا تھا بھائی جہاں پامال ہوا تھا بھائی جہاں اس خون پہ گر کر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم 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 کس شان سے تم دلہا تھے بنے کس شان سے تھی بارات چلی کس شان سے تم دلہا تھے بنے کس شان سے تھی بارات چلی بیٹھی رہی دلہن حجرے میں بیٹھی رہی دلہن حجرے میں آئے نہ پلٹ کر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم 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 فروان کہا بیٹا قاسم کہہ دینا دادی زہرا سے فروان کہا بیٹا قاسم کہہ دینا دادی زہرا سے غربت کی کمائی ٹکڑوں میں غربت کی کمائی ٹکڑوں میں بھیجی ہے سجا کر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم 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 اٹھ قاسم دیکھ تیری دلہن تیرے لاش پہ رونے آئی ہے اٹھ قاسم دیکھ تیری دلہن تیری لاش پہ رونے آئی ہے اے کاش یہ شادی راس آتی اے کاش یہ شادی راس آتی بس جاتا تیرا گھر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم 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 ہر 7 محرم کو مہندی تیری یاد میں قاسم اٹھتی ہے ہر 7 محرم کو مہندی تیری یاد میں قاسم اٹھتی ہے دلہا دلہا قاسم دلہا 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 قاسم دلہا ہوتا ہے لبوں پر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم کبھی اس ٹکڑے پر ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم ہے قاسم
شبیر جب ابا میں قاسم کے ٹکڑے لائے شبیر جب ابا میں قاسم کے ٹکڑے لائے شبیر جب ابا میں قاسم کے ٹکڑے لائے فروا کو دل کے ٹکڑے فروا کو دل کے ٹکڑے شبر کے یاد آئے شبیر جب ابا میں قاسم کے ٹکڑے لائے شبیر کے ٹکڑے لائے مقتل میں پارا پارا تھا محل حسن کا اپنی ابا میں جس دم رن سے اسے سمیٹا آنکھوں سے خوں کے آنسو آنکھوں سے خوں کے آنسو شبیر نے بہائے شبیر جب قاسم کے لائے شبیر جب ابا میں ٹکڑے لائے ہے سخت امتحان یہ ایک باپ کا خدایا کرتے تھے برہم پر رو کر حسین نوحہ کبریٰ کو حال قاسم کبریٰ کو حال قاسم کیسے پیدر سنائے شبیر اے شبیر جب لائے. لاشے پہ سر پہ گر کے ماں نے فقط یہ پوچھا اے شاہ دو جہاں یہ بتلائیے خدا را قاسم کے ٹکڑے کیسے، قاسم کے ٹکڑے کیسے گٹھلی میں ہے سمائے. کبیر جب قاسم کے ٹکڑے لائے، ٹکڑے لائے. جس نے جگر حسن کا ایک تشت میں سمیٹا اس کی دعا میں آیا ابن حسن کا لاشا. تقدیر نے بھی شے کو، تقدیر نے بھی شے کو کیسے یہ دن دکھائے. شبیر جب ٹکڑے لائے. خیموں میں بیویوں کے کوہرام ایک بپا تھا سر، خیموں میں بیویوں کے کوہرام ایک بپا تھا. سر پیٹتی بلکتی کلثوم کا تھا نوحہ. تصویر مجتبیٰ کے، تصویر مجتبیٰ کے کس نے نشاں مٹائے. جبیر جب جب ابا میں کے ٹکڑے لائے. ایسے بکھر گیا تھا قاسم جواں کا لاشا. تھامے ویلا جگر کو زینب نے یہ کہا تھا کیسے بھلا حسن کی، کیسے بھلا حسن کی بیوہ یہ غم اٹھائے. شبیر جب قاسم کے ٹکڑے لائے. شبیر جب ابا میں قاسم کے ٹکڑے لائے. یا حسین 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 یا حسین. حسین 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 حسین. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.